All right. Hello. I don't like that view. There we go. We're going to change that because I didn't like that first view. Hey, everybody. Kim Freeze here from Tabletop Rebellion, and I am so excited to have these two guests with me today, Bernard and Ramon both. We are going to play through Fractal, which is now fully funded and live on Kickstarter. So it's a perfect time to back this game and see how it works. We'll show you how to work, then go back it. And I'll make sure that I put the Kickstarter information down in the descriptions of the videos before we're done for the day. But before I show you the game, let me go ahead. Bernard, Romain, I'll let you introduce yourselves.
Bernardo.
Hey, how are you, Kim? Thank you so much for the time and inviting you to the nice Board Game Rebellion. I really enjoyed the name of your channel. So it's really amazing. Love it. And the Clank Legacy out there is pretty amazing too.
Oh yeah, we're big fans of that one too.
Yeah, and this is my partner Romain for Board Game Inc.
Yeah, and thank you, Kim, for having us. So, like you said, we are publishing the game right now on Kickstarter. It's going pretty well. So today we hope you're going to have a good time testing it and then hopefully beating the Automata, which is the solo mode, by the way.
Yeah, we take the opportunity to show the Automata, how the Automata work, and how the player interact with. Yeah, we trained this creature for 8 months long ago, and we try to. It's the time for test, and see how it goes.
And we've already got someone. Tricks Bunnyman says he's already backed it, but now he wants to watch it so he can have more confidence in what he's spending cash on. That's why we do this kind of stuff. So
exactly.
Thank you, Bunnyman. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to walk through it. I'll let you talk about the game. Let me go ahead and share it. So we are using Tabletop Simulator today. And if I remember correctly from some of the things I've seen, you can check out some of this on your own, not necessarily with us. Backers can also see this on Tabletop Simulator. Is that right?
Yeah. The core game is displayed on TTS. The module is available in the campaign. So you can play pretty much every mode except from a few extended setup, because there's a difference between extended and compact setup, which allow a game a bit longer or a bit more oriented towards confrontation and combat. So gotcha. Yeah, most of the core functionalities are online, and the module is scripted also because it's easier for the first games. And you can test the Automata, just what you're about to play, which is the exact same version that we offer. It's one out of the 7 factions you can play against, but you get a choice of any faction of the game.
Great.
Maybe to explain a little bit more the design concept of Fractal. 4 years ago, we are a veteran. We have a huge group of people that really enjoy Forest game. We love all the Twilight Imperium Eclipse, Space 4X from GMT, and a lot of different type of games. And we practically play any 4X out there, and we try to do something different from the 4X cliché, because this genre in particular had a lot of stuff that is repeating again and again in the genre. So we try to do something different in the exploration, do something different in the asymmetry of the factions, and maybe display a different way to streamline 4X game, because other games out there try to streamline some kind of the 4X experience, but in the process lacks of the part that some of the 4X it is really enjoying, that is diplomacy, conflict resolution, expanding, engine building, and we try to place some of the aero elements in this small game. So
nice.
I will proceed, and maybe if Romain wants to explain the structure of the game, it would be amazing.
That sounds good to me.
Thanks, Bob.
We put you right on the spot, Romain.
Yeah, we scripted. We actually we trained in the mirror,
Yeah, that's right.
So Kim, you're already familiar with the game and the concept, or are you starting from scratch on this one?
And I would say, I know some, but in case anyone's joining us who is not as quite familiar, I would say if we want to touch a little bit on that too, just so they get some information.
Yeah, sure. So maybe we can show the components on the screen a little bigger so that we can explain some of the core concepts. So the main one is the empire board, which is the control center of your empire.
All right, guys.
You're in your area.
This is
right
where
here.
I'm bad at driving TTS. So hang on. My friend Danny,
You have to
who is
watch
also
that
watching
shit.
us on Twitch, is very aware of how bad I sometimes gorilla stuff. Like, it's not pretty. So, oh my goodness. All right. There we go. All right.
So you've got the empire board. So this is the control center of your empire. This is pretty much the area where you're going to play every card, every tactic. You're going to store every technology you acquire in the game. You're going to keep track of your victories, your credits, your influence. It's going to be a nice dual layer board that just because it's nice. So if you click select a faction now, it will be a bit easier because you will have the secondary part, which is the empire board is common to every faction in the game. And then you've got the asymmetry that expresses itself through the factions and some of the options you're going to see very soon.
Gotcha. So I've got those up in here. I'm moving around. Sorry, everybody, you're going to get car sick for a minute. All right, there we go. I should have had Bernard give me a little bit of tricks.
I think if you WASD with the camera, also TTS can move a bit.
Let's see.
And you can use the wheel of the mouse to zoom in the component.
There we go. Okay. Now we're cooking. We'll get there. I'm spoiled by the Sovereignty app I play on, so I'm a little behind. There we go. That's better. Sorry, everybody.
No. So now you get a choice of 4 factions, which represents how the setups happen in the game. So you have 7 core factions in the core game. One of the key aspects of Fractal is we try to push the asymmetry of the factions as far as possible. So each faction has some innate abilities that are absolutely unique to the game style. And then, so for example, which kind of player are you usually in 4X games? Are you more like scientific oriented? Are you more a warmonger? Are you more expansionist?
I would probably say more scientific.
Right, so you've got your pass ready for you, so you can pick the VAX 117. They are actually the most scientifically inclined of all the factions. They are an AI. They are the AI consciousness of an entire species, which is kind of wiped out. So not exactly good guys there. You know? So once you pick the factions, you get to choose a government among 2. So these governments, they are going to synergize with a few key aspects of the factions. And usually they're going to play along 2 different paths to reinforce one of the 2 strengths of the faction, let's say. Okay. So if you zoom out on the cards, you can see where they are.
You actually can press and hold the Alt button, and you can zoom in the component if you press the Alt button.
Look, guys, I did the wrong. Hang on. Woohoo! We'll lose everyone on this in a minute. I promise. I will get the hang of this in a second. Okay.
Get your bucket, Grams. All right.
So
now I'm touching stuff.
You can zoom in with if you have the mouse, you're hovering over a card, you just press the Alt button, and you will have a full screen view of the card. What it is.
And is this one?
Yeah, Alt.
Alt. Ha.
Hover the component.
No. I got you. Everyone on stream is laughing now, and it's okay, guys. Blame Sovereignty for spoiling me with not having to click on the stuff on TTS. Okay, so hold the component, and then hold. Say it again. Tell me what I'm.
You just have to hover. If your digital hand is over the component, just press Alt, and you will see an exploding. Yes,
now we're cooking. One. Oh my Lanta!
You can even scroll up and down to zoom in the view, I believe.
Yeah, with the wheel of the mouse.
Woo! Here it comes.
Yeah, here it comes.
Yeah. There we go. Sorry about that. No. Maybe we should have practiced before I started.
Yeah. Here we were just discussing, and we should have
just talking about D&D, and I probably should have reminded myself how to use TTS. Okay.
So this is each government has actually two actions. One will be triggered during the income phase, which is the first of the four phases of the game. So the
Okay.
income is just the name says. Is this when you're going to collect your resources? You're going to remove some depletions from the actions. We will talk about that in a bit. So this government allows you to be more aggressive with your research, which means you're going to push your empires toward more scientific discovery. If you check the
Okay.
second government, it will be more aggressive. It will allow you to be more aggressive with a different kind of action, which I believe is advanced.
Okay. So check this one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Aha. Okay.
Oh, very
Oh,
good. Sorry.
my mouse moved. There we go.
And so this one instead will allow you to be more aggressive with a recruit action, which will make easy the expansionist moves that you are going to try. And in the same way, the action is available during the action phase, which is the second phase of the game, and
Okay.
also grants you a special abilities. So each faction has two different governments. They have
Okay.
some overlap. Some factions share some governments, but usually they have one that is completely unique to them. And if you check the faction board itself, the one with the illustration,
This one right here.
yeah. So you see the two unique abilities of your factions. These are absolutely different for each and every one of the factions, and they are going to help you play the game in a way that wouldn't be possible with another faction. But
Okay.
just an important point is that just because you're playing Vax and just because you have tools to help you play a scientific playthrough doesn't mean you can just go all out on war and just exterminate
Right.
everyone. Just you don't have to play science. It's just you've got tools to help you do so.
Well, maybe to explain a little the structure of the game, this is the basic concept of modularity of the factions. Each of the faction contains the innate ability, contain a government, and contain a battle mastery. So Bax right here have the ability to recover some of his fallen soldiers in battle. And this nature of the faction is increased during the aftermath because the legacy campaign introduced new governments and new masteries for this faction when they reach ascension. Um, So this is a modularity here that lets you play the same faction in multiple ways when you have more components for them, and this increase the replayability in a huge amount and give you a lot of different sensations or feeling when you try to try different opening strategies or try different type of outcomes.
Okay.
Okay, so you need to pick one of the governments that is central directive or meritocratic society.
Again. All right, chat. What do you guys think? I'm leaning towards this one. I'm gonna
Okay.
give chat 2 seconds to chime in if you all feel differently or if you want to see another one.
So it
Just
could be.
yeah. I was going to explain
Do
the
you have one
secondary
you
actions
recommend?
just so that. But if you're going to play science, the central directive is going to help you with the research action, accessing the
Okay.
research action more often, which means
Okay.
more technology you can develop. But at the same time, the action below with the meritocratic society, if you don't mind just displaying it, yeah, you can discard one of your technologies to develop a new one for free, which means you're going to have some versatility in the way you use technologies. You will be able to drop something that maybe becomes less relevant as the game state changes. Whereas with central directive, you're going to be able to banish some obstacles from the game. We'll explain that in a while, but it's going to give you an easier time expanding throughout the board and exploring some new sectors.
Gotcha.
They both work equally well normally. If the balancing is right, they both work the same way.
Nice.
Well, the best
We'll
way
go
to
with the
understand central directive. Okay. So the best way to start understanding the structure of the game is go to the H board right here in the middle of the game. I will try to, if you please zoom in.
Oh yes, here we
in the
go,
middle.
everybody. Hang on. Just kidding. Just kidding. All right. There we go.
Okay, so the standard competitive game is composed by two ages, the Genesis and the Ascension. The
Okay.
game comes with a different type of scenarios and different
Okay.
type of setups. So some of the games could be shorter, so only using the Genesis age. Other could the standard game will be reach the Ascension, and the other type of scenario, special scenarios, and some surprise in the Legacy campaign will reach the Fall. That is the last age of the game. Each of these ages is composed by two different cycles, and the cycle by
Okay.
itself is the concept of the round. So each of the round is composed by four different phases that I will explain in this small help reference sheet that you have right here. So
Okay.
the first thing that we do during the cycle is to the income phase. So during the
Okay.
income phase, each of the player remove only one depletion token. I will move later to explain the depletion token system.
Okay.
That is a risk management, but we will see. And you explain and gain resources from different kind of exploitation areas. That is the second square that you find in the income phase, and then the players generate influence and credits and can trigger the
Okay.
government action that is displaying your government. So the income phase is gaining resources and planning what's next in your actions,
Okay.
planning your government to improve maybe your turn. Then we move to the action phase. That is the main part of the development of the players during the game. And the action phase, the first player, and clockwise, each of the players is
Okay.
taking turns until all the players pass. And which
Okay.
action they can perform? They can perform four different actions that is considered the basic actions. That is recruit, colonize, advance, research, play the government action, and play an action card. The player pass when they play the last action, the last action card they can able to play. So I will
Okay.
tell you when we see the tracks. So during your turn, you need to play two different actions. This is one of the key
Okay.
part of the game that is the planning. So you can repeat the same action twice. This encourages player to plan better the turns
Makes
and
sense.
try to take a step on be careful which of the action and in which timing the player will develop and perform these actions. And then
Okay.
the last action, the last phase on the game is the conflict phase. In the conflict phase, the player resolve combats, and this combat happens when it's a contested sector, and a contested sector is when two players of two units of two players share the same space on the board.
Okay.
There is some kind of different type of diplomacy behind the legacy. It's not only conflict in this game, and the people will find different kind of mode that change the rules of this basic structure. But each of the cycle is basically resolved in the same way: income, action phase, and conflict. And then
Okay.
after we and if you check, for example, the empire board.
And
Yep.
just to clarify, the fourth phase is just a cleanup phase, the end of cycle phase.
Yep.
A few conditions trigger on certain select cards, such as the one in the center of the board,
Okay.
and it's pretty much the cleanup of the board. But the
Yep.
important parts here is that if you go to the Empire board, the main control center we were checking before,
Yep.
you will see the action phase. There are a few concepts that are very important that you understand now so that you can play efficiently. The first one is that the four basic actions, which are recruit, advance, colonize, and research, they all require you to spend one
Okay.
credit. So this is
Okay.
where the income phase is tied to the action phase heavily, because your entire economy is actually how many actions you have. Your credits are called credits, but they are truly action points. And during each of your actions, you're going to be able to play each of your turns. Sorry, you're going to be able to play two different actions. They have to be different. You cannot, for example, do recruit and then recruit again. So you
Makes sense.
have to do some planning. So, and the action cards mechanic is a bit different because it's your timer for the cycle. The moment you play your second action card, you finish your turn. So if you play your action
Okay.
card as your first action, you still get to take your second action for the turn, and then you have to pass. It's not it's mandatory. So
Gotcha.
you have to manage the credits for the first part of the timer of the phase, the cycle. Sorry, but you also have to manage how and when you trigger, especially the second action card. You can fully wait
Gotcha.
until you only have the action cards left to play. That's completely fine. But usually you want, because they are in a common pool, you can see them above the board on the right of the board. They are on a
Okay, up
shared
here.
pool, which means if you see a card that truly interests you, you you have to be the first to seize the opportunity to take it.
Gotcha.
But once you do, you have exactly one option left before you have to pass.
Yeah, maybe we need to explain a little bit in detail each of the actions. And
Yeah, sure.
if you zoom in the empire board where you have your colonies, you notice that each of the colonies on the empire board is covering one of the part of the tracks. So this means that if you play this colony on the board, the efficiency of these tracks go higher, and
Okay.
all the actions in the game are tied to these tracks, and this track increase your efficiency of the actions. If we see, for example, the first track right here, that is the imperial track, give you influence and give you more movement orders. So the second number in the lower part is the movement orders. So
Okay.
when you perform an advanced action, you move only 2 space units. So if we increase the level of this track, we find
Yep.
out that we gain influence and we increase the movement orders. So
Okay.
this means that the imperial development of your empire increase in organization and increase in control over the movements of your pieces over the war. And the
And this
last
is sorry, this is typically your expansionist gameplay where you're going to be able to move more units, so you won't waste as many actions just occupying the board and
Gotcha.
going further.
yeah.
Sorry, Bernardo.
No, don't worry. So the last part of the track is pretty important because the specialization in this game is rewarded. So when the players reach the last step in this track, gain the ability to play one more action card. So all the players
Oh,
for
okay.
the rest of the game can only play 2 action cards and place it face down, face up in front of them. So when you reach in this moment on this state of your empire board, you get able to play 3 cards without
Nice.
pacing. So this is quite important because give you
Yeah.
more control over the tempo of the game and give you more control of the pool of the action card you're taking.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we move on to the second track. That is the productive track. The productive track is one of the most simpler track to understand, and this increases the amount of credit you gain during income. So, if you had more credits, you get more actions
Yeah.
during your turn, and your economy is just better. So the thing with the economy in the game is that each of the credits change in value depending of the efficiency of the other tracks. So it's not the same to spending 1 in credit to only move 2 space unit that move
Yeah.
4 in the last stage. So all the economy of the game is tied in some point to increase the efficiency of some of these credits. So if we
And
move
it's
on,
all, sorry, Bernardo, again, I'm interrupting for the productive track. It's also why it's so important because these credits are the action points. It's why you will see the main sectors that you have to watch out for and try to control are the productive sectors. They are the yellow ones on the board because they are the ones who are going to generate credits both through the colony that you are going to place, which
Okay.
is going to reveal the rightmost slot, which is better for your production, and also because they have these exploitation areas that we discussed before, which are pretty much some bonus resources if you are in control of the sector with a certain amount of units.
Okay.
And so usually what happens is that these sectors are crucial for the war effort, if you want. Everyone is going to try to steal productive sectors from each other. And when, I mentioned before, I don't know if it was during the live or not, that you have the compact and extended setups. The compact, they tend to focus on conflict, and the way this is achieved is by removing some of the productive sectors. So you're going to
Okay.
have at some point to go and borrow a productive sector from one of your neighbors.
Gotcha.
yeah. So well, the science track is more tied to the efficiency of the research action. That is one of the basic actions of the game. So the research action led you to place one of these science tokens over technologies on the display. So the amount of tokens you place depends mostly in the position of your track, and the scientific track also improves the speed of your space units. So if
Okay.
you see in the bottom part is the movement speed of your units, through the game. So when you reach, you have only the first phase. You have all your units are able to move only once one sector adjacent. When you reach the second phase, you are able to move, and the last part of the track reward you to have able to move 3 spaces on the board. So obviously
Okay.
the science generated in the track is heavily increased. So you're able to take in more technologies and more costly technologies compared to other players. This is why your starting faction, each of the faction contains a starting colony, and the backs 90 then the backs start with the scientific colony. So because it's scientific centered type of faction. Um, there
And
is
that's
a
why also I was explaining about the fact that just because your faction is scientific in nature doesn't mean that you have to just do research. The simple
Right.
fact that you are able to move more sectors at once means you can deploy units very quickly on the board, which is a huge advantage because you can
Yeah.
reposition, you can take your opponent by surprise, especially during the last turns when they are not necessarily able to react to what you're doing. So just because you're pushing the science track doesn't mean you cannot use that for the benefits of
Gotcha.
just another way of playing the game.
Gotcha.
and the last track to maybe explain is the military track. That is other of the most simpler track to explain. This increases the efficiency of the recruit action. So each time you recruit, you spend 1 credit and you choose one type of the units revealed in the track. In this case, you're able to recruit only one light ship, or you're able to recruit 2 infantries. When the track
Okay.
increase and you reveal new spaces on the track, you're able to, for example, to gain two light ships instead of one for 1 credit, and you're able to recruit a new unit that is the mechs, and you gain more units and more efficiency on your track. And the last reward right here, that is this symbol, is that the mastery of your faction get improved permanently to the second stage, that have an
Oh, cool.
improved
Okay.
version of the mastery of the faction. This improved progression of the faction and give you more reward for the specialization in these tracks. Maybe if you can help me explain the basic actions right here, how this
Yeah, sure.
board is working.
So, like we said, there are 6 actions. The four, what we call the basic actions, they all require you to spend 1 credit. Just as a remember, because it's an important rule, you can never play the same action twice during the same turn.
Yep.
So, recruit actions means you're going to check one sector where you have your colonies, and you are going to place some units that are determined by the military track. So, like Bernardo explained, at first you can recruit 2 infantries or one light ship. If you
Okay.
start moving up the colony track, you're going to be able to recruit either more of the smaller units or some bigger ones like the warship and the mechs. And then you can just spread them on the various colonies you have, or you can put them all on the same. But you can do it. So you do it only once with the recruit action, and you have to choose which type. You cannot say I'm going to take 2 of this and 1 of this. You just check one type of unit. The advance action is going to allow you to move your units on the board. I'm seeing Kim frozen. I don't know if.
Looks like Kim is dropped from the room.
Yeah. Kim, can you still hear us? We're just playing the game by ourselves.
Looks like his connection failed. So, well, thank you, Bonnyman. Any others listen to us? Can any of you please? Yep. Okay.
Sarah, we've dropped.
I will try to share my screen. Um, in the screen.
We're taking over this live stream. That's it. That's piracy live stream.
Yeah. We sabotage
We
the
have
screen.
0 combined experience, so it's going to be just a blast. Don't worry
It's
about
just
it.
fine. Yeah. Okay, I'm just trying to tabletop simulator. Here we go. So hello. So tell me if you're able to look at the screen. The tabletop simulator is looking at the screen. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's try again.
That's live for you.
Yeah, you know. Okay.
I don't think. Yeah, we have no Kim, no TTS. So
I'm back.
yeah,
Our internet
Yeah.
router just rebooted right in the middle of the. Oh my gosh! I was sitting here and I went, "Uh-oh," and our entire internet router just rebooted. So hang on, I'm gonna jump back in. Sorry about that, you guys.
No worry.
There was
We
only
were
small
just,
bits of panic here at the house when that happened. I love it. Tricks Bunny said, "Bye, Kim. I'm back."
Hello,
Thanks for welcoming me
Alan
back.
Smith. Alan Smith is one of the guys that is pretty active in the forums, and thank
yeah,
you
I was
for.
Oh,
going to
that's
say,
awesome.
It's awesome.
I just the name just rang a bell right now.
Mhm.
We'll get it pulled back up here, and we will pick up where we left off. Oh. It doesn't like my password, even though that's the exact same password I used the last time we did this. Uh-oh. Bernard, I may have you send me that password in the chat in here again, just to make sure.
Rebellion.
That's what I thought. That's what I'm typing. Let me in, TCS.
Yeah, TTS could be a little bit messy when we are
very angry at me right now.
But it's useful. Honestly, we would not have been able to develop the game, especially this
Oh, sure.
months and years without it. Especially because we are very far apart geographically. But yeah, it's true that it's not exactly the real deal. It's a substitute. It's working quite well for what it does. But
there we go. Yeah, so we used to do a few more of these, like streams and things on Tabletop Simulator, and it was a lot, so you can collaborate and make changes to a game a lot simpler when you can have it in something like this than a printed prototype or things like that. And especially in a pandemic, this is when it was a lot easier for people to be able to connect with someone who may not live in their household or something like that.
It's a bit difficult. It's fine enough when you're trying out you're balancing the game, you're by yourself, tweaking some mechanics and stuff. It's when you want to measure some real life stuff, like for example, when you want to see how much time it's going to take. TTS is adding some time because you're always trying to. You don't have like a global vision of the table, or actually you do, but it's not. It's not the same. You're always forgetting about stuff, and so. We're quite happy that the physical prototypes are finally here so that we can play with some real
That's exciting. There we go. Now we're back. You gotta love it when your internet just randomly reboots. We make the joke that it's not a Tabletop Rebellion stream unless something goes wrong like this. So,
I mean, it's in the name, you just have to hear about that.
There we go.
I think I was talking about the advanced action. So I'm going to assume you lost us right away. So when you advance, you have the possibility to move your space units on the board. So the space units, no suspense here, they are the warship and the lightship. The ground troops, which are the infantries, and the mech cannot travel by themselves through space. So they need to be transported, they need to be carried by the space units. And the advanced action, it works as a combination of two tracks, like Bernardo explained before, which is the Imperial track, which is going to determine how many space units you can move with a single action. So for example, in your case, you have only the first space uncovered, so you can move 2 space units when you advance. And then you've got your scientific track, which is going to give you the maximum distance you can travel to in terms of sectors. So in your case, because you are scientifically inclined, you've got pretty much better reactors than the rest. And so you can move 2 sectors at once. So if you really want to expand quickly and efficiently, it's better to diversify your efforts along both tracks at least a little bit. So this is for the advanced actions. So anytime you advance with the space units, if you have ground troops in the same starting sector, you can carry them with you. And there's a limit of transportation, which is that the lightship has a carrying capacity of 2, and the warship has a carrying capacity of 4. And the infantries, they count as 1, and the mech, it counts as 2. It's pretty straightforward. The colonize action, or the research, I don't know which one is which on the left. Yeah, the colonize action is very simple. When you have an infantry, so the small soldiers, in a sector that is suitable for colonization, you can do the colonize action to take one of the colonies from your empire board to put it on the sector that you are currently controlling.
Cool.
So
Okay.
on the sector, you've got spaces for the colony. So you've got your colony slot. You can have only one colony per sector, with a few exceptions in game. But let's say the basic rules, you can have only one colony per sector. And the type of sector is going to influence which type of colony you can place. In this case, for example, you can put Imperial, and I'm not seeing it right now, but I think it's like scientific or military. The symbols underneath the slots tell you which kind of colony you can build. So this is very important because not all colonies can be built on on every sector. For example, the productive colonies, the yellow ones, they can only be built in productive sectors. So you are going to have to think about the way you expand on the map, especially considering that during the setup you didn't see it because this is TTS, but some of the sectors, they are in a fixed state. So your starting sector is always at the same distance from the productive sector and everything. I'm talking core game only. Huh? But some of these sectors, like the arid, the mysteries, the biodiverse, they are randomly selected. So you don't know for sure that they are going to be where you need them to be to expand in the way that you have decided to expand your empire. And it's especially important because on the objectives, which are used for the scoring, sometimes you will need to control or colonize specific sectors or put some specific colonies. And they are not always going to be next to you. So sometimes you will have to go visit your neighbors, you know? And the research action is pretty straightforward also. You just check the scientific track. You look at how many science you're currently generating, which is the number indicated on the left corner of the track. In your case, I believe it is 3 or 4.
3.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
3. Yeah. Yep.
And then you just take the science tokens, which are the small round tokens on the top left part of the here, and you go and you assign them to the technology board, where you have both military and civil technologies. And whenever you do research action and one or several of the technologies just fill up their quota of science required, you develop them, which means you take them, you add them to your empire. And then you benefit from their actions from now on. As a small note, for example, Vax has a special effect. One of your 2 innate abilities is that when you develop any technology, you burn the remaining copy. There are 2 copies of each technology. With your faction, you burn the remaining copy, which means by your very presence on the board, you're going to kind of create an attrition of research and technology for the other players. And then, so these are the 4 basic actions. They all require credits to be played. Then you've got the 2 special ones. The first one is to trigger your government action. So this is the bottom part of your action card. So you can do it only once per cycle, and it costs influence. Influence is gained through the Imperial track. It's gained through various cards effects. It is also used for scoring victory points during the objective. So you have to be careful with the way you spend it. It's not just something that needs to be spent to 0 all the time. But it can be used for some very powerful effects on the government card. And then you can play unaction cards up to a limit of 2 cards per cycle, just like Bernardo explained before. And the action cards, they are in the pool and they have very varied effects. So they can pretty much do anything. So you just have to check in the pool what is happening and what is available for you.
Okay, so we move to the first part of the game, that is the income phase. Yeah, actually, Alan Smith is saying that TTS is actually slow, but we're just teaching how the game and how the game is working. It's actually more quick when you're used to the rules and stuff, no?
Yeah.
Okay, so in this case, in the income phase, you gain 3 credits that is marked in this mark track right here, and you move to 3 credits in this area. Okay. And we don't have any exploitation area in the game, and there is no point to play the income action of your faction.
We forgot about the depletion, sorry. Because we just forgot about one thing, it's the depletion. When you need to play a basic action, but you either don't have the credits or you don't want to spend the credits, you can do something which is called a depletion. And so what happens is that you block the action for future use, but you don't have to pay the credit to activate it during this cycle. The only issue is
Okay.
that once an action is depleted, you cannot use it again during this cycle unless you
Okay.
remove the depletion token. The problem is that you can remove naturally just one depletion token at the beginning of each income phase, and then all the rest you will have to find alternate ways, such as action cards, some government effects, or stuff like that. Like for example, Vax, your Vax can remove against one influence, one depletion token from the research. That's why I was telling you before, it allows you to be much more aggressive because you essentially have one free research action every cycle compared to your opponents. Obviously, it's not totally true because it's costing you some influence, but the idea is pretty much that, yeah. And there's nothing at all preventing you from depleting all four actions in the four cycles, the first cycle, but you're going to have a very boring second cycle because nothing will be
Yeah.
available to you.
Okay, so the automata don't have the same economy, and if you move to your left in my play area, we choose and place Saura faction, automated faction. The automata contains 10 different action cards that simulate the action that the automata built and try to simulate the behavior of a single player, and 5 different combat cards that make the composition of each of these automata unique. Maybe some of the automata will be more aggressive or more expansive or are more defensive, and this try to simulate and try to show that you're facing different type of player every time you're facing the automata. So you have the replayability of the behavior and you have the replayability on the faction by itself. So in this case, the automata start with the starting colony and the usual starting units of the faction, and you are the first player. So you are the first player into execute the action phase. We move to the action phase, and you start in this starting sector in the map. If you can zoom up in the map.
Yep. There we go.
So you're able to explore part of the game. The board by itself has different type of sector, as Roma mentioned before, and this type of sector contain a card by itself
Oh,
in
okay.
the upper part. This card is meant to be the obstacle and the anomalies, and this card represent a barrier to your faction to colonize this sector. So if a sector contains a card over any of the players able to control and obviously to place a colony in the sector. When you move and explore these areas, you discover a different type of puzzle, and this is part of the different type of proposal we do for Fractal. Fractal is more about to explore quickly your small puzzle and try to understand how is the best way to resolve it. It's not just draw random events or stuff. It's more focused on management
Okay.
other than exploration by itself. So
Because some of the, like Bernardo said, some of the obstacles and anomalies, they are going to favor you heavily because sometimes they will just be a right match for the way you're playing. Let's say, for example,
Oh,
they are
okay.
going to ask you to spend influence to gain something. If you don't really care about influence for this specific way you're trying to play right now, it's not going to be a bother too much. But let's say you're going through something very militaristic, you're going to try to expand your armies, and then one of the anomalies or one of the obstacles is going to require to have to burn 3 units, for example, to trigger its effect. Uh, you're going to have to play around that to find a way to either completely bypass this sector and not care about it, but then you're losing some
Okay.
colony space. And you can see on the board, compact map, 2 players, you don't have too much space to expand. So you
Right.
want to make the best use of what you have. So yeah, you got some tough choices to make, which is why sometimes like the Vax effect, which allows you to just burn the card and says, not this one, I don't want to play with, can be very useful because it can allow you to expand very quickly without having to fulfill some very difficult conditions sometimes.
Gotcha.
okay, Adam is asking why the depletion tokens has 2 numbers in the VAC. So each of the actions are able to store only 2 depletion tokens at time. So this marker right here is meant to represent that the action is depleted once. So you're able, in some points, with some of the action cards and with some mystery cards, able to deplete the action twice. And this means that this action will be heavily blocked from different type of action, different type of future actions you perform. Okay. Um, so
And
which
regarding
action?
the correct way to put the board, the current way we are testing, instead of pulling the cards by type, like okay, all my technologies are going to go there, all my artifacts are going to go there. Underneath the board, we are structuring by phase. So you say, okay, every card that is going to be triggered during the income phase is going to be on the left side. And then the biggest part is everything that's happening during the action phase, a few stuff during conflict, so that you just have one area to focus on when you're trying to find out about all the possibilities. Because once you start collecting some artifacts, which are some special rewards you can get, they are small cards with very unique effects. Then you start having technologies and stuff. It can become easy to lose something. So currently, we're trying this approach of everything is pooled by phase, by when you need to activate it, instead of by type of card. It's working pretty well so far.
Yep. So the last part right here, maybe to explain, is the action display. The action card display show different type of event that make each of the turn unique. In change the circumstances and the status of the different factions between each of the turn. So the game contains a huge deck of different type of events that only 4 of them are placed face up
Okay.
in this turn. For example, in this case, the plagiarism card led you to copy a card from another player. The advanced logistic led you to remove one depletion from your basic actions. You can gain 1 credit with mining exploitation, banishing some of the units, and the banish is something quite important in the game, because banish means remove the component completely from the game. So this
Okay.
is asking you to sacrifice your pool, or capping your max amount of units that you will be able to recruit during the game. And
And
the
it would
last
always be
one,
your army that you're pulling from, not your opponent's, right?
yeah, yeah, your army, not the opponent, correct? And
Darn.
then, damn, the take that.
Actually, you should. I think you should have played the Boroka because they can banish opponents' units. So I think that was right up your alley as well.
Yeah, it's more about attrition. Yeah. So the last card right here is Paranoia, that let you burn out influence to banish one of the
Okay.
colonies on the board. So this is actually quite interesting, because you're gaining the advantage to having the truck, the space on the truck, but the colony is not on the board, so it's not counting for the objectives. So the last
Okay.
part, to understand how to win the game, that is actually quite important. And actually, we need to start with that part, right? How to win. If you go to the center part right here, we have a card that is named the objective card number 1, and there is other card face down that is placed during the setup that is meant to be revealed when we reach the end of the age. So
Okay.
the first card tells me 5 different conditions that I can meet to gain 1 victory point. In this case, the imperial victory point, the imperial condition is telling me to have 3 influence. The productive
Okay.
objective is asking me to have a productive colony and a biodiverse sector, that is the green sector in the map. The scientific objective is asking me to have 2 civil technologies, and the technology have 2 different type of colors. The red technologies are military
Okay.
technologies, and the blue technologies are civil technologies, that is meant to increase your macroeconomy of the game. Um, and the last one is the military objective is asking you to control 2 non-habitable sectors in the game. We will see when we move to the board. And the exploration is asking me to have an imperial colony on the board, 1 arid sector, controlling an arid sector.
And so for these objectives, you've got 8 cards for the first age, and then you've got 8 cards also for the second age, which currently is face down.
Okay.
And they are all have different conditions. So obviously, some of them are shared. You will find, for example, the influence is common to all the imperial objectives. But
Okay.
the colonies that you must control, sometimes the military is going to be about controlling the non-habitable sectors, because these ones are fixed as well, and they are going to be friction points around the central sector of the board. But sometimes it's also going to be about simply smashing your opponents and gaining some battle medals. But so the way these objectives move, they are going to make you unable to play the game exactly the way you want it. You're going to have at some point to
Right.
adapt if you wish to branch out at least a little bit. Because even if you play very militaristic, for example, and you exterminate your foe over and over and over again, if you are unable to score any of the conditions, you can still lose the game. You know, like one of our players used to say, I just burned my opponents through and through, and I lost by 12 points. You know, and that's absolutely possible if you're just focusing on I'm going to destroy everything and not on how actually the victory points work for this specific game.
So, Kim, you need to choose two different actions, and to represent which action you want to perform, you move and declare which action you want to perform. You can move one of the action at once and see the result of the action, and choose the second.
Are there any recommended ways to start?
Yeah,
I would say recruit and advance are some fairly good ways to.
That's what I thought. Okay,
Well,
that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
yeah, you just personally, I like to add a light ship and then start exploring right away. But maybe Bernardo has a different starting habits. I don't know.
yeah, it
And
mostly
now-
depends.
And I have, because I have 3 credits, so that's
Yeah.
so to pay my credit to do,
Recruit, and you pay your credit, right?
and then I just move this down, right?
One by one.
Whoa! Wait now. My mouse decided, no, don't touch the tactics. Stop it. Oh, for Pete's sake. All right,
If you
mouse.
want, you can just tell
There we go.
Bernardo. He will move you. He will handle your economy. He's the economist of the duo.
I am the boot now, you know.
Like, and how did Kim get extra credits? Because her mouse cheated.
So when you do the recruit action, you can choose along your military track. Yeah. So currently you have 1 light ship and 2 infantries on your starting sector.
Yep. And so then, and that's my starting sector that's right over here, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And they would
And
need to
remember-
go on to that same sector if I recruit.
Yeah, when you recruit, it's on your colonies. So at the moment, you currently have only 1, so you don't really have a choice in the matter.
So, do you want to recruit a light ship or 2 infantries?
Let's do a ship.
Yeah.
I think a
So
light ship's the way to go.
Okay, so I place a light ship right here. And what is the next action?
And then you said advance is the next one is a good one.
Yeah, so you move the token.
All right. That one I can do without hurting myself.
So is the time to move 2 of your units, because the Imperial track allow you to move 2 light ships, and you can move 2 spaces away. So which light ship you want to move first?
So can I move through the spaces with the cards on them without an issue?
Yep.
So I'm thinking over here to this yellow spot.
You can move, explore what is the event in this card, and then decide if you want to move on.
Oh, okay, that's cool. So you get a chance to like peek at it.
Yeah. And these cards are resolved at the end of your action. So at the end of your turn, sorry. So at the end of your double action. So you can decide that even if your original plan was to keep moving until you reach the predictive sector, if you suddenly decide, well, I can make use of that, then you can stop your movement. You don't have to.
Yeah, I don't think we can.
But you can burn the influence for an extra light ship actually, if you want.
Yeah, this event is dealing with piracy, and you have 2 different ways to deal with piracy. That is having 3 light ship in this sector and gain 1 influence. That is gain reputation, or burn your reputation and make a deal with this piracy and gain 1 light ship.
I like how thematic that is. Do I want to burn one of them?
Remember that your influence can be used also to activate your government action for the turn. So if you burn the influence now without a way, unless you plan to expand Imperial, for example, which means you will gain some more influence, or unless you've seen an action card, because I didn't see which of the 4 action cards were actually played, but if you see an action card that allow you to gain some influence as well, that's great. You will be able to recover from it. But otherwise, you might have to skip on the government action. Just
Okay.
a warning.
Yeah, because that one I was like, I don't know that I would want to do that early on. It seems like you'd want to build some of that up and not burn it all immediately. So I think that I would probably just move ahead and we'll not deal with pirates. We'll just not deal with them right now.
So we move ahead and move to this productive sector that is a sun, and you need to move your second lightship that is right here.
This guy. Whee. He comes
So
with me, right?
If you want, yeah, you can leave it behind, but there's not many benefits because he won't be able to move again. Sure, he can defend the colony, but so far, the chances of you being attacked in the starting sector are quite low.
Yeah.
Or you can expand and explore the other areas. There is a lot to explore right here.
So the Utopian sector, the one in the middle, he has a special card on it that allows you, if you are in control at the end of each cycle, to score some extra victory.
Oh, okay.
So it's quite powerful, and usually, just so you understand, the behavior of the automata, the fallback behavior of the automata, we will expand on the behavior when it's its turn to play, but it's going to fall back always to trying to control this sector if everything fails, pretty much. So it's going to be heavily disputed. It's not going to be the safest place to be in the map, but it's some free victory points that you can control. So that's worth thinking about.
Then let's just jump out because we can go one here, right? And does that just since we already moved one there, or is it still two for each one of these? So then this one could move here.
Okay, so when you move here, you need to reveal the area, and you need to decide if you're carrying this infantry with you. Okay, so when you reveal this event right here, this forces you to stop movement, and if you don't have a one extra movement, just your lightship suffer 1 damage. In this case, you're able to stop, and because you have the enough science to understand the event, you stop your movement right there. These represent an area to exploit resources. If you have 2 lightships right here, you can study this area and gain science.
We didn't warn you about the living galaxies because of the fact that you are a scientific faction. You didn't actually risk anything because you have 2 movements. But that also means that if you are a non-scientific factions, these sectors are very dangerous to explore because you can very well lose your ships when they enter because they need 2 movements not to suffer damage. Which means that they are not off limit because you can risk it. Not all of them are damaging, but there are some sectors that are going to be natural barriers to the development. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Okay, so it's the turn of the automata. So in the case of the automata player, we move right here to the action cards. The first card is discarded. The first card right here is discarded, and we play the second card aligned with the border of the other card. So the automata has 8 actions they will perform in this free cycle because they have 5 cards, and the action that the automata execute depends of these red arrows and these lines. Okay, and if you see a small square in this area, there is some cube that complete the behavior of that you will use during this
Interesting.
case.
Okay,
so in this case, the automata will try to having a defensive behavior and trying to perform the first action. The first one is to colonize, if able. If in this case you don't have any to colonize, and try to take one of the civil technologies in the slot number 3. So the automata take one of the cards and place it face down. The automata don't gain any benefit right now for having the technologies. Some of the actions get improved when they more assign cards. So the second action is to burn the 4th slot of the action deck of the action deck. So he take this action card and place it face down, and this slot is not replaced. So this means that each time the automata play one action card, you have less option in your action pool right here. And in this case, gain 1 influence. So this is the turn of the automata, and it's your turn. We move this card.
Sorry, Bernardo. Just to expand a slightly bit more because you went a bit fast on the way it works. So can you just put back the action cards very quickly? So the Automata doesn't care about the type of technology, or not rather the type, but the effect of each technology, simply because it's really too difficult to map and it would require player agency. So instead, it's a simple check of how many do you possess. It's the same for the military and civil text. They both impact a different aspect of it. And the action cards also, because there's just no way to play all the diversity of the 54 action cards. So instead, it's a simple check of I have one, I have two. The moment the Automata has two, you can see on the faction mat of the Automata, it has a special effect that will trigger that is per faction, which means you still keep the asymmetry of the factions when the Automata is playing, and you just don't bother with putting the agency back to the player, which goes contrary to what we want to do with the Automata, which is you take 95% of the decisions automatically, you know. And so the fact that you have the two cards forming a combination with the arrows means that even if you start with the same 5 protocols out of 10, the combination of effects and the combination of what's happening is going to be different. And then the behaviors, you will see it in more detail when we start having some movement and some recruitment. It's a simple decision tree that is supposed to take away again the player agency. Usually you don't have to make any decision with it. So that's the whole point, is that you don't have to say, I think he's going to move in this sector because it's more advantageous to me. Sometimes you have to decide when every tiebreaker just fails, but it's pretty rare.
That's pretty cool.
So it's your turn to perform 2 different actions.
I think, let me get back over here. Whee! Okay. Let's see. Let's research. That sounds fun.
Okay, so just spend 1 credit, perform research.
Here we go.
And you place 3 of these science tokens in any of the technologies on the board. And with this action is your only way to take a technology. So which technology you place, you have a lot of time to read some of the actions. But this technology card improve the tactic cards of the conflict resolution of the game.
Okay.
And there is this improve the ground assault, that is your infantry. This improve your light ships. This improve your defense. This improve your flanking, and this improve the defense of your colonies. So it's actually pretty easy, and player needs a little bit more of time to understand some of these technologies. But when you place this technology with the research action, you're able to complete the technology. You have enough point to complete and take the action right here. So in this case, it's good to remember that the objective is asking you to have 2 blue cards, 2 of the civil technologies completed. So in this case, I will display some of the technologies. This is let you remove always at the income phase 1 depletion from the colonize action. So you're going pretty well producing colonies. Under core agent, let you remove enemy units from the board when you pass at the end of the phase. The war propaganda led you to gain influence at the income, and the research lab. That is actually pretty useful.
Which
because
synergizes well with it synergizes well with the governments, because you will have a sure source of influence. So not only can you use it for the objectives, but you can also have a way to make sure that you can actually fire your government actions every turn. So it can be very powerful as well.
Don't worry. The other one is research lab that improves the efficiency of the exploitation areas on the board. And the last technology right here is orbital colony, that let you colonize the sector that is right here in the middle, that is unable, any other player is unable to colonize. So with this technology, you're able to place colonies right here.
Okay.
So which technology you want to develop?
I think this one, the war propaganda one, that during income phase that you can.
So press the button right here that's saying, and we remove and return to your pool the science token. Okay. So you need to perform the second action.
Ooh,
You
that one
still
was
have one
exciting.
credit.
And I'm kind of just now some of these I'm picking so that we basically can show all of them. Would we want to colonize anything yet?
Um, you
You're,
already
you're
control.
Yeah, you're on the productive sector right now. So
Yeah,
if you colonize it, you're going to be able to generate more credits at the next turn.
that's
Currently,
what I
you
thought.
will be able to score the exploitation area because you have one infantry on the sector already. But if you want to actually increase the generation of credits and therefore how many actions you're going to be able to perform,
Mhm.
given that you're already in position, I think it's a safe bet to colonize the productive sector.
Okay, cool. So we'll do that.
What you have to wonder though is, do you colonize it? Is this the only colonization you're going to do this turn? Because if it is, then
Oh,
you could afford to deplete it, because you're going to by spending influence, you're going to remove the depletion on research action. So the free
okay.
depletion of the income phase could be used for the colonize action.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see what you're
But
saying. That makes
if you plan
sense.
to explore a bit more, then maybe you want to keep the depletion for advance. I don't know what you have in mind.
I would think at that point, no. Like, so I think I think I agree with you that it makes sense to flip it this time.
Hmm.
I think so too. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, I flipped it once and then I flipped it back. I remembered the flip key.
Yep. So there we have it. Then you perform the colonize action. So you take this colony and place it on this productive
Yep.
area of the board.
Come on, little square. Come with me.
Hmm. Okay, so this is your for the rest of the turn. You're unable to research again. So
That makes
is it
sense. Okay.
okay? So is the turn of the automata, and we go to reveal the next card in the protocol deck. And this time, the behavior of the automata is aggressive. So he will try to do something different to
Okay.
attack your colonies and try to pin down your light ships. So the first action the automata will perform is to colonize, and we check the state of the board that the automata is now able to colonize nothing because they have infantry in any sector. So in the red arrow right here and the line right here is stating that if you're unable to colonize, you perform a movement. So
Okay.
if we move through these three, the aggressive movement try to force the automata to attack any other colony of the other player or any unit of the other player. In the case that is unable to perform any of this action, go to the expansive behavior. So in this
Okay.
case, it's actually pretty easy to understand. And the expansive behavior tells you you need to move to the priority stated in the lower part of the card. So if you check right here, the cards contain a small priority, and this
Okay.
priority tells you which unit the automata want to attack or recruit, or which colony he want to place on the board. So in this case, the automata is trying to move to a sector able to place a scientific colony. So in this case, if we move
Okay.
to right here, um, here we are. Here we are. Okay. Trigger expensive,
Hmm.
expensive. Okay, okay,
So the
okay.
way the decision tree works, it's not for the recruit action. It's pretty straightforward because it's only the top box, and it's usually you check which colony is closest to other sectors you can colonize, or which colony is currently threatened by enemy and units. The
Mhm.
advance is slightly more complex because you make the check before each of the movements. You remember the imperial track. You can make several space units move. But the same is true for the automata. So if it can move, for example, 2 units, it's going to check twice the conditions, which means even if you're playing an aggressive behavior and you've already started attacking some enemy units and then suddenly they are engaged, is going to check some other conditions. So like fall back to expensive, and that says, okay, I'm pretty much done with this. I've pinned down these units. So now instead, I'm going to move to seize control of this sector. I'm going to place
Okay.
these units on this sector for future colonization, which means it's not going to do some weird stuff that you can sometimes see with an AI, which is go all in on something, you know.
Right.
Like, okay, I am an aggressive behavior right now. I'm going to move all 15 of my units in this very sector because this is my condition. The having a feedback loop pretty much after each movement prevents this kind of loop of strange behaviors that sometimes can make exploiting the AI a bit easier.
That's really neat.
In this case, the automata moved to this sector because it's able to support scientific colony, and the automata don't resolve any of the obstacle right here. The obstacle instead is resolved, automatically removed. So this means that the automata will able to colonize in the next possible action.
Okay.
So in the second row of action, state that the automata wants to take the first action card and the first military technology. So in this case, take the number 1 technology card right here, and then take the card with the number 1 of the action pool.
Okay.
If the automata completes 2 action cards face down, he triggers a special action that is a state depending of the faction. So this is the turn of the automata, and it's your turn.
Okay. Didn't you put an action card in the first first phase of the automata? I seem to remember you had 2 only.
Yeah, I pulled the first one right here, and it's performed 2 turns
in the first turn. So yeah, sorry. Yeah, Kim. Okay.
So now I would need to be doing action cards at this point, right? Since I've done all these. Okay.
I think if you have something interesting that could help you either move freely on the board or maybe add some units or reinforce some of your resources. I forgot about all the cards, but
this card right here led you to banish one of the light ships of your reserve. This means that you will continue the game without one of the possible light ships you will able to recruit, but led you to remove a depletion token from your actions. This means you were able to use your action of research again this turn.
You could redeplete your action. And but the units are quite limited in numbers. Maybe you've noticed it's on purpose because you cannot have a crazy war effort where you just expend gigantic armies everywhere. If you start having big armies, it means you are weakening some of the other spots of your empire. So you can redeploy your troops once you have nothing else in your reserve. So it may not seem like much right now when the game starts because I have lots of light ship in my reserve. But actually, banishing one cycles 3 and 4 can have a very big impact. But I would say that since we're not going to see cycles 3 and 4, you don't risk too much, you know.
Yeah, right. And then and then this one, of course, was I'm banishing one and from my reserve.
It's even worse, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this seems like this first one here seems like the way to go. Yep. Okay. Well. Hit that claim button. And then we got a new action token.
Okay, so we take one of your light ships and we banish from the reserve. This means that your new pool of light ships is reduced by 1, and you remove one of the depletion tokens from your actions.
Okay, and that would be this one.
Yeah.
Does it just come back down?
Yeah, it's restored. Lifting them up is simply to remember that you've played twice, because sometimes when you in the latest cycle, once you start doing some big advanced actions where you're moving entire fleets around and stuff, it can be easy to lose track. So these are just used to remember, okay, am I playing first or second action? Well, no, it's the first.
And then does that card stay there, or where does that go on my...
Yeah, it's a reminder that you've played 1 out of the 2 authorized cards for this cycle.
Cool. Yeah. Okay.
So you perform the action, the play action card, and you need to perform a second action this turn.
And now you're free to deplete again, thanks to this last card that you played. So because you will remember that you always have 1 free depletion no matter what, that you can remove. I mean, in the next income.
I'm trying to decide what would be the next best thing to do. And Chad, if you have any suggestions, by all means, we can go on this crazy ride together. And if either of you have any suggestions, because it feels like I need to be getting more. Maybe I need to be doing more with uncovering some of these at this point.
Bernardo, what would you do?
Um,
I'm very expensive when I play, but it might not be the best way to play on a compact game. So.
Yeah, maybe if you're able to remove the depletion token from research, is try to abuse this mechanic because you're able to remove it anyway with the central directive. Probably if you deplete this action, you can take the second card and complete the objective card in the scientific.
Oh,
In the
okay.
scientific, so it could be probably a little bit of greedy movement because you're focusing on expansion, but it could be a way some to develop your victory points.
Hmm. That seems like a good way to go. Okay. Let's do let's do it.
Okay, so you deplete your.
Yep. There we go.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
And you take one of these civil technology right here with the cost of 3. In this case, could be a way soon to have this one because you
Yeah.
already have a place that you can colonize actually.
That makes sense.
Hmm. Because your backs, you remove the other copy of the of the,
Okay.
of the card,
Oh, okay.
and we move it right here. So this effect in the action phase, we place this technology right here. Okay, so which is the second action, and actually you can colonize because you tell me that you want to colonize. You can spend the last credit to colonize a new colony
No,
in this area right here because your
Yeah.
technology able to place colonies in this area.
I got you.
that's two
Okay.
already, Bernardo. That's two for now. It's the Automata's turn to play.
Yeah, that's two. So okay, it's the top of the turn. So we move the second card right here, and the automata is triggering the victory behavior. Okay, so he will try to move to the utopian sector, and if he already control the utopian sector, he tried to complete any of the objectives the automata don't have completed. So in this case, he's trying to recruit. This is the symbol to recruit and advance. In this case, which only units to recruit is stated on this card in the upper area. So if we see the arrow in this point right here, the arrow is pointing to the first composition of units that the automata
Okay.
could recruit. In this case, the automata will place a light ship and an infantry in the sector nearest to the utopian sector, that is right here, and we
Gotcha.
try to perform a movement trying to reach the utopian sector. If we see the map right here, um, the first movement of the automata, he is able to perform two actions, is to move a light ship with two infantries to the utopian sector, and we reveal a wormhole, and this wormhole is placed two spaces away from the player, and this sector are connected permanently.
Oh, okay.
So in this
That's cool.
case, obviously he will try to place the wormhole in a sector with any colony of the player. In this case, we have this right here and right here. And how to break the tie is see the priority on the lower part of the faction. In this case, he's trying to
Okay.
place he placed the wormhole in the scientific colony that is your home sector. So the automata has already access to move to your home sector. So when we move to the card and check again the condition, the next try to move, if we already control the utopian sector, he tried to move perform a movement trying to complete any of the other objectives. In this case, is controlling one of these cards right here,
Yeah.
going to the lower part. There is a priority right here that is based on the priority on the card. So we move to the area that contains a scientific colony right here. So this is the first action, and the second action is take order of the military colonies of the military cards, and then perform the colonize action. So in this case, the automata want to place based on the priority, place a scientific colony right here. So in this case, this automata is trying to move forward to control the utopian sector and increase his speed to is a quite maybe not pretty aggressive but dominant kind of behavior. So it's your turn. So
And you have to watch out for the fact that the Automata has managed to develop quite a few military technologies already, and they are going to be used on the tactics. So far we haven't discussed tactics because we will see them soon enough in the conflict phase. But you can already expect that the fight against the Automata is going to be able to pretty much upgrade every tactic is going to play. So it means you need to be ready a little bit for defense. Just what
That
I'm
makes
saying.
sense.
Just a little bit for
Yeah.
defense.
Yeah. And so does it make more sense at that point to try to get your units if he now has this wormhole to my starting sector, does it make more sense to also have units in that area?
That would be a
waste. Yeah.
good idea.
We talked about D&D, right? You're not supposed to split the party, and what did I do? So then that tells me that we're probably going to want to, let me scroll in here so everybody can see. Let's see. That would be advancing, right? To move them back around.
Well, you can because so far you're going to be able to remove the depletion naturally from one action. Then with spending influence, which you're going to gain in any case through the use of your technology, you are sure to gain one influence, so you are sure that you will be able also to remove the depletion from the research action. And you still have one credit left also, so you can be actually quite aggressive. You could recruit and advance if you want to reinforce some sectors. I don't know which new cards the action cards popped, but yeah, you can recruit in the starting sector, which is maybe a bit quicker to reinforce it. Maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then we have, so that's two. So probably 2 infantry then would be the way to go.
And just by the way, the fact that the Automata has a wormhole going to your sector means you also have a wormhole going to its sector. So it's
that's true.
Yeah. And the wormhole also has an exploitation area, which means that if you have the correct resources, I don't know which one you had because I didn't see the board well, but if you have the correct resources on the sector containing the wormhole, you're going to be able to exploit it. Well, so in that case, what you want to do is actually recruit a light ship, because next income phase, you'll be able to actually proc 2 science from that. So
okay, so we're gonna put a light ship here.
This is the recruit action.
Yep.
And just spend a credit, right? Your last credit.
Now. I'm all out of money. Okay.
Now you can deplete one of these action or play the last action card. But that means that you need to pass for the rest of the turn. Because you're able to still deplete one of your actions. It's recommended to deplete other of the actions instead.
I gotcha. So that probably be the advantage. Go ahead. Brandon.
Sorry, I was going to say if you wanted also to remove the threat of the Automata, just to point out some of the special effects of your faction. The Vax, the second abilities of the Vax on the faction mat, if you check it, you are able to banish one of the board events. So it's oh no, sorry, I was thinking about the wrong facts. Sorry, my bad. I was just,
you got my hopes up.
I was talking about the government actually. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I got you. Yeah.
The government action right here.
Okay, so this one allows you to banish an obstacle, anomaly, or living galaxy, and then you go to the innate abilities and you proc some additional effects thanks to it. My bad. So that's also an option because you take away the exploitation areas of the science you're going to be able to gain, but at the same time you also cut this kind of highway to your starting sector, which may or may not be a good idea. And you will gain something from it, but you've got to spend one influence, so that's also something to keep in mind.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. I think banishing probably seems to be the appropriate move at this point. So hang on, let me do.
Other way is to pin down the opponent. If you move your light ship to a sector with other opponent light ship, you're able to block the movement of their unit. So this means that they both units are unable to move, but you prevent the automata to push you far away. So maybe you can use advance and attack the automata and prevent him from movement because it's your turn, and maybe probably the next one the automata will try to attack you.
Yeah.
Bernardo is much more aggressive. It's more like I'm going to strike you first before you can move into my territory. Whereas I'm just like, I'm going to close the door. Just let's all be friends. You know?
And pretend that you're not outside banging on it. Oh, that's too funny. Well, I'm trying to think. Like, let's do what's most exciting for everybody watching, right? Let's
Yeah, so
attack.
go with Bernardo's suggestion.
Let's
then,
attack first. So I would come back onto my board and do advance, and then move those into that sector, right?
Mm-hmm. So you need to
Now, can I? And I would
advance.
need to, and I would have to do it
It's
this
advance,
way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Indeed.
And you can move two space units, 2 spaces away. This is all or nothing.
So it would just be these two, right? This infantry and this light ship.
Could be a nice idea, but you need to face this.
You could also bring as a secondary movement because you can move twice for 2 sectors. You could bring the light ship either from the productive sector or from your starting sector as well.
Yeah. Would you use the wormhole to do it?
Yep, correct.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Ah, that's so cool. All right, let's do that. So we'd wormhole him into here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd pop in with these guys or gals. Mm-hmm. I don't judge. They could be anybody.
Anybody, yeah. Okay, so this sector is contested and it's the last turn of the automata, I guess. You burn out almost all your actions and it will perform the last action of the automata. Let's see what the automata will do.
Kim can still play. She can still. She still has 1 action card.
Yep, 1 action
she
card.
Hasn't touched about the. She can still trigger the effect of the government as well.
Yeah. Okay. So the automata have the aggressive behavior in this moment. So the aggressive behavior state that is trying to siege one of your colonies or attack one of your units with different type of priority. In this case, the automata will try to colonize if able. In this case, the automata don't have any possible sector to colonize. So instead of colonize, he will try to do a recruit. In this case, he will try to recruit a mech and a light ship.
So, because just to explain very quickly, some of on the cards of the actions, so you always got so you've got 4 lines and then 5 lines, and then you've got left and right actions, and so 4 lines, sorry. And so what the automata is going to do is try to first check the left part, and then depending on the line and arrow at the center, red 1 means try to colonize. If that fails, then do this, which is usually advance or recruit. The white lines are just a simple end, so do this and then do this.
Okay.
And sometimes you also got an arrow, which is usually tied to spending influence, because the automata also has influence that it can gain and lose. And so sometimes you have a conditional also, try to spend some influence so that you can do this powerful action, which is usually one of the faction mat asymmetrical abilities. And if everything fails because for some reason, like not enough units or the position is all wrong, everyone's pinned down or something like this, there's always a fallback of recruiting then advancing. So the automata is always doing something useful in this.
Mm-hmm. It's called the last breath, the rule. So in this case, the automata will try to take the action card number 2 in the slot that is represent this one.
Okay.
And place it face down and try to recruit again.
Which triggers the action, Bernardo.
Trigger the action in right here.
Oh yeah, okay.
Place in the cycle 1, the automata will try to place 2 light ships in a sector he control, in a sector with his colonies, right? Yeah, in a sector with his colonies, and the sector nearest to the opponent, in the case of the aggressive card, is placing right here, and he tried to to
Yep.
build up more armies, trying to
Uh-oh.
recruit more units. So
Oh,
There are a
indeed.
lot more green ships happening out here than there are blue ships. That's
yeah,
for sure.
and all this
It's
unit has a
not
lot
looking
of
good.
technology. But the good part is that you do you're not attack this turn, and you only need to deal with these units.
Okay.
Yeah, this because the Automata is done playing because he has no more cards. This illustrates a very important aspect of the game is that actions, like for example, triggering your government is not just a matter of do I want like this extra benefit or this extra effect. It's also that if you play last, then you get the last say in how you move your units in a way that is impossible to retaliate for your opponents. And this economy of action, it's not just about doing as many actions as you can, it's about finishing as late as possible so that you have all your options open. Because if you're the first one to finish, this is a surprise attack, and then they all play 4 turns, it's not very useful, you know.
Mhm.
Right.
So you can perform the last action and the last government.
So at this point, we'd want to. Is this one I would want to trigger my government as my action?
Is banish. Maybe spend one of maybe check the action card we have right here
Oh yes, that's true. I
and
forget which
see
ones.
the options.
So this one
You,
is. Oh, I can banish one. Okay.
It's
oh
getting
wow.
That's
heavy on the
mine.
bar. I mean, technically, again, with my theory of no cycles 3 and 4, you can go nuts. You know, you gain back 1 credit, you still get to play.
You can still banish. You already banished one of your units, and this increased the banish to 2 more. So playing with your cap. The second one is spend 1 influence to banish a colony from your board. So this increased the efficiency of your engine.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There are 2 options that emerge right now. You could use the second action card we just saw, because whether you use your government action or you use this action card, it's going to cost you 1 influence. This one specifically. This one allow you to develop the engine, which is not necessarily easy on a compact map because you don't have that much room to expand. So having an artificial way of expanding your imperial tracks is quite useful. But then you won't have enough influence to spend on the government action. So
Right. Well, I seem to have
Okay.
gotten myself into a small bit of a mess with all these guys lining up to kick my booty. And so if I banish a colony, that's one of my colonized areas, right?
Mhm.
you banish a colony from your empire board. So it means you gain the same benefits as if you had colonized the sector, except the colony is not anywhere to be seen on the board. So you don't take control of a sector, but you do
Okay.
reveal the slot that is underneath. So you improve your engine by doing this.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, so let's do that. Well, wait. If I take that, then that would be the last action that I would do this turn, though, right?
Yeah. I think we lost Bernardo. Yeah. So the moment you take your second action card, the turn is over. You still get to play your second action. I would have liked Bernardo to be here for this question because there are questions about just the simple fact of do you have to take the second action? Because we have like a kind of experimental branch of the game going on where we are always trying some new small tweaks to the rules to see how to streamline it to the best possible effect.
I gotcha.
Because at the moment, for example, if we are still playing Bernardo, I wanted him to confirm, but he just left. So if you are forced to play your
He
second
forfeited.
action,
He gave up. No, I'm just kidding.
uh, in case you have to play your second action, if you use your influence to do that, then you won't be able to use your government, and it
Yeah.
means that the only action you will have available would be to further deplete so that you can do one of the other 2 actions. But having 3 depletions while being able to remove only 2 is going to be problematic for cycle 2.
Yeah.
That's already back.
Yeah, Bernardo, which ruling are we currently playing on the Automata? Is it okay to skip one of the actions, or are we playing with the more experimental branch where you can just not play the second action? Because in the case where you have to play the second action, triggering influence to burn the she will have to deplete. To deplete, she won't have any other option. So
Yeah, but he is still must play 2 action. It's mandatory. We are still testing, maybe to some of the community play testers tell us that 2 mandatory actions to punish him, but encourage planning. Maybe this tempo that you generate right here puts you a little bit far away, but you're still able to play 2 of the actions right here. That is spending all the actions and deplete other of the action right there. So you still have to play 2 actions, and this encourages you to
Okay.
plan better. It's like you're the head of empire, civilization, and you need to plan better what is happening. So
Our poor civilization's crashing. So at this
Yeah.
point, would it make more sense to
yeah,
take the government action before I take another action card?
you can take the government action and still play the mining exploitation
Yeah, I
action
think
card
so.
right here.
Honestly, ending up with an extra depletion, because you're going to have to choose to make a choice. Do I spend the turn not colonizing or not recruiting or not advancing? Well, not advancing is not a good, it's really not a good advice. But
Yeah.
you can do it. It's completely feasible, but you have to really plan ahead. So, or have some luck with the action cards. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I would play the safer bet on this one if I can
And
give you some
one extra
advice.
credit could give you some benefit for the next turn. That is actually this next cycle will be pretty little bit difficult.
So okay.
Also, if
So
you burn the card if you burn with your government, don't forget that the Vax is triggering its special abilities, which is going to give
The
you.
constructor.
because it would give me because it's gonna fix one of these, right?
Yeah, when you remove this, you're going to trigger the last ability of the faction mat, which is going to reward you with. Currently, my brain is out, so I think a ship more.
Is that the safe bet? Or
It's safer. It's safer. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's do that. Let's play. I've got a little aggressive, and I see what happened when I did that. So I'm going
Yeah, that's
to
why
be a
you
little
don't
safer.
want to. Yeah. Because if you end up either being unable to recruit or unable to advance, both of those options are very difficult to handle given the situation with the automata. So you're going to have to sacrifice colonization, which can become troublesome maybe if you cycle 2 without colonization is a bit tough.
Okay. All right. So how do we then trigger? So then how do we show that we trigger the government as an action? We move down 1 influence, right?
You move 1 influence to pay the action. We move the marker right out here, and we place a faction token right here to represent that the action is already depleted. So in this case, you are able to remove one of these tokens right here, or obstacles of card from the map, and gain 2 science doing that.
Okay. And what? It seems like it would be smart to get rid of this other wormhole.
Could be a nice idea, yeah.
Like I say, that seems like otherwise I'm gonna find myself all kinds of surrounded. Does that just go over here? I should probably let you control. I'll let you control things, or else I'll break stuff.
And you gain 2 science in other technology. So
woohoo! And so then I can pick one of these, right?
You can pick one of these this gives you more advantages of the exploitation areas and give you 1 extra science for each exploitation area you have control in the map in the income phase. This lets you to remove 1 depletion always from the colonize action. That's quite useful because
that might be what we want to do.
Yeah.
Let's do that one.
So if we place 2 science right here, and the technology requires to place 5 size points to complete the cost of the technology. So in the further turns, you're able to play a research card, a research action to play more science token and complete the cost of the technology. It's actually pretty costly. Yeah.
I was just trying to steal it ahead of time before.
I want to say hello to my partners of the War Room. This is one of the playtest teams, and it's actually we have an event today. So say hello to everyone, and hello, Smith. Yeah, they're one of my game groups. So you're able to play a second action card, and you don't have enough influence to pay this action, so you play the mining exploitation. In this case, the mining exploitation, you claim,
Okay.
press claim. Fine. Okay. So we banish two more units for Empire.
Huh.
It's a little bit messy, yeah.
Your
But you gain
transport
one credit.
capacity is taking a hit.
Oh. Okay.
But you gain one credit.
Pretty soon, your entire empire is just going to be guys.
It's all
Some guys just jetpacking through the cosmos.
Right.
I'm going to get there.
going out.
Eventually, I'll get there.
Okay, so we move to the conflict phase. So in the conflict
Cool.
phase, we place a combat medal in the sector that is contested to
Okay.
mark that the sector need to be resolved the conflict. So in this case, I will move this unit right here to resolve the conflict in other place. So if you
Okay.
mark right here, I will remove two cards right here, maybe this one and this one, and please mark the number 6 in this deck, please. The
Ah.
number 6. Okay, so this is the hand of tactic cards that you're able to play
Oh.
during the conflict resolution. This actually is actually pretty simple. How it works: we need to play cards and discard it every turn we place and resolve the effect of both of these cards until
Okay.
one of ours is completely destroyed, or one of us play the retreat card, forcing your unit to move to a nearest sector with your units. In this case, there is a lot of um, thing to explain. Let me show you some of the card right here. If we
Okay.
can zoom
Yep.
in, we have two cards that correspond to defenses. One of the defense is meant to protect you from the ground attacks, and the other is meant to protect you for the attack from light ships. So light ships are pretty good generating this type of damage, that is
Okay.
direct damage. And each of these cards contains an initiative number in the upper part of the card.
Oh. Okay.
So this meant that these cards are quicker than the others, and these cards are speed 1. So both the defenses and the
Okay.
orbital assault are the quicker card you can play. Then if we move to the to other type of unit of card that you can play is a speed 2, initiative 2 is retreat your units to a surface place and gain science in between. This is called scouting. This is pretty useful to gain military technology, because it's a
Okay.
way to, instead of losing your units, you're still gaining one resource when you retreat
Yeah,
from their enemy.
sometimes it's not worth the hassle of just losing an entire fleet if the fight starts turning and you're not sure you're going to be able to come on top. It's better to just take one last hit if they are moving fast with the initiative, obviously, and then just retreat to a sector where you can rebuild and take some time. You gain some military technology as a result, some military science,
Okay.
research technologies. So you don't always have to say, "I will stay to my last unit and I
Right.
will die on the field."
Yeah. So in the initiative tree we have the ground assault. So
Okay.
the ground units in this game are actually more slower, but the amount of damage that you can deal with this unit is huge compared to other ones. For example, the orbital assault can deal only 2 damage, and with the technology you can increase the damage in certain amount. Um, then the lower part, that is the black part right here, is all the technologies associated with that card. So in this case, let
Okay.
me show you one of these one, subkinetic rifles right here. The subkinetic rifles increase the efficiency of this composition. If you have 2
Okay.
more infantry, you can still trigger the effect right here. So the technologies increase the weight and the value of these cards in your hand. But the other players already know that, and this is what the part of the rock paper scissors mechanic you're playing here. And the
Yeah.
last card right here is flanking. Flanking is the lowest card right here, but it's quite efficient, especially dealing with the defense cards. The defense card has some type of damage that is exclusive from that card. So in this case, the orbital assault protect you from direct damage. That is the target number, the target symbol, and the ground defense protect you from other type of retreat and indirect damage, that is the skull. So in this case, the flanking helps you to overcome that defenses and deal a lot of damage by sacrificing only one of your units. So flanking
Okay.
is sounds a little bit desperate, but it's actually quite useful if you know that the player is willing to play a defense card. And this is
Yeah,
part of the rock paper scissors mechanic we have here.
that's cool.
Obviously, when you play against the automata, there are less of a psychological factor that comes in, because when you play against another player, you know the cards. We all share the same tactics, with a few exceptions like the Chingu and the Boka. They have one card that is different, but basically we all have the same cards. So, and you know that it is based on the units your opponent has. So the more, it's not necessarily about how many units you have; it's about how many types of units you have, because the more types you have, the more options you have in terms of what card I can play. Like if you come at me with 3 light ships, I pretty much know that the assault is going to come from orbital or flanking maybe, and so I know against which attack I have to defend. But
Okay.
by having a diversity of units, you have more options available, and that's when the kind of mind game starts. Because okay, I have more units, but if I attack, he's expecting it, so he's going to play a defense card. And but well, the fact is, I know that he's going to play defense card, so I'm not going to attack. I'm going to defend. But then he knows I'm going. Yeah, you know the kind of stuff that's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Obviously, the automata is simulating this with a different way, so you can't really psych the automata. You can try, but you're not going to go very far. But well, you're going to see how it works when you play against the automata.
Okay.
Okay. So you please pick your card with pressing the number 6 or when you're hovering over the deck, and the automata will play one card. So you need to choose one of the cards and place it face up. In this case,
So
is obviously face down. Mhm.
yeah, to give you a bit of well, I was going to explain the way the automata works in terms of defense, because defense for the automata is going to check not its own composition but yours. So it's going to emulate the fact that if you are coming at the automata with, for example, a lot of light ships, there is a chance that it will be able to counter it, because its cards will have some defenses that are adapted to your own composition. It's not just playing some cards that affects the combat, no matter what happens in front of you. It actually takes into account what you are playing also. So, but you will see that soon.
Hmm.
Let's test how it goes, and maybe with a little bit of imprints of So choose one of the cards and place it face down right here.
Hmm.
Don't forget that while you have a similar number of units, the automata has 3 military techs, which means it's going to be able to dish out much more damage than you.
Yeah. Which makes me think. Hang on to my defense cards. Um. Oh my gosh, Romain, what do you think? I don't know. I don't know what to play.
But if you are able to strike fast
Yeah.
with your orbital ships, because if you play a card that has the same initiative as your opponent, both of them trigger. Which means if I play we both play orbital assault, for example, we are going to annihilate our own units, but they still get to proc. Whereas if you play flanking, planning to play it with, for example, your infantry, but then I play orbital assault and I just take out your infantry, you're not able to play anymore. Yeah, I
Right.
agree with Adam. You
Chat's
should
saying
attack.
it.
Yeah.
Chat's saying attack quickly too. So.
Okay, so we reveal the cards simultaneously, and we see which composition of the will do the automata do. In the case of this card, the automata, if you have 3 infantries or a mech, he will rise the ground defense, displaying a defense. In this case, you don't have enough units to complete this condition. If you have if the automata have 3 infantries, and in this case, for example, the red one refers to the unit of the player, and the yellow one and the white one refer to a unit of the composition of the automata. In this case, the automata don't have
Okay.
the mech or 3 infantries. So in this case, this composition is not triggered. So if
Okay.
we move to the last one, the initiative 3, the mech, the automata don't have a mech, but already have an infantry. So he will perform 2 retreat damage and 1 retreat damage because he has enough military technologies to do so. In this case, your card is quicker than that. So in this type of damage means that you can choose one of the units to kill of this automata. So which unit will you want to destroy?
So it seems like based on this, we'd want to destroy one of the infantry. So, well, he'd still
Yeah,
have
but
two, wouldn't he?
the problem is, yeah, exactly. If you
He'd
had
still
been
have
able
two.
to add a third light ship, you would have actually taken out both of his infantries, rendering the entire tactic it was playing completely obsolete because there was
Yeah.
nothing else to proc it, and so the fight would have gone very differently. But now you can take out one of the units, but you will still suffer three retreats. So all of your units are going to leave. This you know for sure. But what is interesting is you still go first and you still get to pick the unit. And if you take out the light ship, then suddenly the infantries are trapped there. They have no way to move by themselves.
Adam
Mm-hmm.
is asking if you can zoom in the card of the
Oh, yeah.
automata, and the
Let
last
me do this real
composition
quick.
of the automata is
Can you see it
is
there better,
showing
Adam?
that it will prefer to do with
Yeah,
this
there's a
Yeah.
small
composition
O, Adam. Yeah.
is having an infantry or having a mech. In this case, is only performing retreat damage, and retreat damage don't destroy the units, only force you to retreat the unit to other sector. We will see how it goes.
Yeah. So that is an or there. Yeah. So I said we go for the light ship.
Yeah,
It's
I
most
think.
probably, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So we remove the unit is completely destroyed. So in this case, the protocol of the automata is triggered, dealing 3 retreat damage. In this case, the defender, that is you, need to choose one unit one by one to suffer retreat. In this case, we have enough retreat damage to force you to leave the sector. So the automata kick you out.
Yeah,
Oh,
and you
okay.
see
Yeah.
the weight of the technological upgrades is that without military techs, you would still have had maybe like one infantry staying in the sector, which
Yeah.
might have been enough to actually take out the rest of the units, depending on defense and stuff. So
Yeah.
So in this case, the combat is finished, and your units need to move to the nearest sector controlled by your units. In this case, you can move any of these 3 sectors on the board.
Okay.
So
So we'll just
let's.
yeah. You can zoom in over here. Come on, stuff. Yeah. I would say that probably.
So you can move right here, you can move right here, and you can move right here. And if you see, for example, this area right here has exploitation area. So in this case, you can choose any of the closest sector.
Yeah. I was trying to see what that void like. Do we meet that void condition? Um. Yeah, that works.
yeah.
Okay, so we finished this small demonstration of the cycle, and we finished the last one. In this case, the automata units will remain in the utopian sector in the middle, and the automata will gain one medal conflict of the
Okay.
conflict resolution. At the end of the cycle, we check all the conditions that is meant for this type of events. In this case, the resonant monolith, that is the event we have here, give the automata one victory point. So in this case, the
Okay.
automata will score one victory point. So
So you see you see that the combat is not like because technically you lost the battle because you had to retreat, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time the automata was the only one to lose one unit, which is pretty important also because it's allowing him to move around the board. So he's so far he's stuck, but at the same time he also took the medal for which can be used for objectives. In this very case, so far they are not used for the current military objectives. And he also took the 3 victory points from the singularity, which is a bit more troublesome. But
Okay.
it's not you can't really say that there was a clear wipeout on the board, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, to answer maybe the question of Adam, yeah, the idea of the automata is that each of the automata you build is quite different in behavior, and that actually that happen with the player. If I play multiple times with Romain, he will change in strategy in any of the games based on the faction and based on the composition of the behavior. So this is quite interesting to play because every time you play with the automata, one of them centering in expansion, others centering to exploration, others centering technology. In this case, we have automata is only snowballing and creating a huge technology, but has a lot of holes in his strategy. And the work of the player right here is to identify these flaws and try to exploit these problems and try to take advantage of this problem. And yeah, with the Borat boys too.
And also one point that because we always refer to the automata as the solo mode as a kind of a shortcut, but the truth is the automata is also meant to be played in lower player counts games. So like if you are playing 2P or 3P games, you add the automata. It's especially, for example, effective when you are playing a two-player game because you know
Yeah.
how it works. Well, we were discussing that before. You've played a lot of two-players game these last months and years, so you tend to know exactly your opponent. You've
Oh
played
yeah.
tons against them, and then the problem is it's always a duel. There's always sometimes you don't want to fight your partner. So
Yeah.
then you introduce the automata as a kind of like, it's not me, I'm not the one attacking, it's just doing some random,
Right.
and it's kind of breaking the dynamic of we're always facing each other, which is nice, and it's working quite
Yeah.
well with Fractal. But sometimes it's also nice to kind of like throw a grenade in the mix, and just say let's see
Yep.
where the
For
pieces
sure.
fall.
No, I like that a lot. That's really clever.
Also, well, so thank you so much for this small demonstration. You have a pretty interesting engine here. You have maybe probable the enough influence to meet this objective, and it's quite interesting that you go for maybe a more
Sorry,
greedy curious to take. Uh-huh.
sorry about did you want Kim? I think Kim, did you mention wanting to do 2 cycles or just a quick cycle? I forgot.
Totally up to you. We can do either.
It's because it's a little bit here
I say
under
it's
the
probably
oven.
getting a little late in your neck of the
Okay.
woods.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that we were not cutting you short, but
Oh
No,
no, you're fine.
up to you.
yeah, I have twins, so my twins is actually pretty demanding. So
It's fine now.
it's trying to knock back that door that is right here. Yeah, yeah, but this is actually a nice small demonstration of how it works, and it's actually quite interesting the perception you have to take more technologies. But obviously you're a little bit behind in army.
A little bit.
But the
That's usually
yeah.
my problem in most games that I play like that. I always get behind in the army stuff.
So what you think, Kim?
This is really fun. This Automata is really cool. Like I love how this, and I even saw some comments too that the chat's really liking it. This is incredibly clever, and I can't imagine the amount of work that you all have put into coming up with this to get it to flow so well. So kudos to you on that for sure. Oh my gosh.
That's the reason Bernardo is so tired, actually, because he spent the last 6 to 8 months working on how to make the automata. Because we actually reached out to some companies. The stuff is Fractal was made as a 2 to 4 player games, and then the solo, like we were saying, the solo community has been expanding by default because some of them don't have a choice anymore, and so we kind of reached out after the solo community reached out to us. We reached out to some companies that specialize in designing some automata modules. Usually it's fan-made work for some games. Like there's a Roots automata module also that is quite famous, but that's also fan-made creations. But yeah, either they lacked the time or maybe they found that it was a bit complex. So Bernardo decided, well, I'm going to try that with the team. And so that's the result.
Did you see Adam's question here? He wants to know, Bernard, if you come on, there we go. Look,
yeah,
I blame the mouse, but it could be me. Do you stay up all night on Kickstarter and to respond all hours?
Yeah, the answer is yes. Actually,
Bernardo never sleeps.
I never sleep. Yeah, actually, I slept quite a low amount of hours, like 3 hours a day. Since I was young, so I enjoy my evenings. Is the time when I play solo games. I make a lot of designs and try to explore different kind of books. So I enjoy answering the Kickstarter. We have a really nice interaction with the community, and thank you for your support, and take your time to upload and play the game in TTS. We have a lot of effort in the game, and when we only just a small note, when we start working in the automata, we had 2 paths. Going for the short path is to make a random deck of cards that give victory point for the automata for nowhere. The gain
We've seen
cards
those,
and
yeah.
get it's probably the short path we can take, and we decide to push a little bit forward and try to simulate a player that falls under the same objectives and the same rules of the player. The automata moves like a player, recruit like a player, and score victory points like a player. So we're trying to
Yeah.
do something very interesting, but we need the support of the people to still continue playtest. And any other possible questions you have, please answer in the Kickstarter on the BGG.
Yeah.
Nice.
And also the automata, I think you've seen by the way Bernardo plays it. Once you know the way it's acting, because at first the behavior tree, especially with the advance, because you have to consider that each advance is its own separate action. So at first it takes a little bit of time to understand the logics and the mechanics behind it. But it actually makes sense, you know, if you're playing aggressive, he's going to aggress your colonies and ships. If you're going defensive, he's going to reinforce his colonies. And if you're playing expansive, he's going to try to colonize new sectors. But you've seen from the way Bernardo plays it that once you know what you're doing, it's actually super fast. So we say
Yeah.
always the game is 30 minutes per player. It stays true once you introduce the automata as the second player, maybe even faster. I don't know, Bernardo, how quickly you play against the automata. Just 1v1.
Probably pretty
The,
quick now.
like 40 minutes in a 2 players automata, and 3 players automata like 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, 10 minutes more maybe. 1 hour for fighting 2 automatas.
So this is the summary is this is a forex made by a guy who never sleeps and who doesn't have time to play because of twins. So if
Yeah.
you are in a situation that looks a bit like
Then
this,
this could be for you. Yeah. And I think that
Yes.
it was like once getting through the explanation was fine, and then once you go through a round or so, you're like, okay, but then it becomes that trying to master. So I like a game that's fairly easy to learn but difficult to master, because that means it's going to hit my table more often.
yeah,
Mhm.
I agree.
Because there's so
And
many different
also-
ways that and because there's multiple factions that you can play, so you're going to play all those differently necessarily, and yeah, so that this seems like it has a ton of replayability on top of well beyond what we saw today.
Yeah, because you already saw, because you were quite aggressive with the depletion, you already saw that for some place you were stuck with like you had 1 credit left for maybe 3 of your turns and you still
Yeah,
had
so
options
that
left to play.
yeah,
And it goes exponentially as you move through the cycles because you get more and more credits, you get more and more technologies, more and more. The action card stays limited in numbers, but you've got so many options that there's a real feeling that cycle 1 is where you put the first steps of your empire. Sometimes the turns can look a little bit alike from game to game because you have to recruit and advance at first. You need to explore. But then once you start moving, you have to adapt to the objective. Cycle 2, there's this weird shift because suddenly it's not necessarily all about what do I do to optimize my position on the board. It's there is a scoring happening at the end of the cycle.
Mm.
So I need to pay attention to this. So you need to take risks sometimes
yeah,
to see sectors, you need to colonize and everything. And then once you reach cycle 3 and 4, you're generating quite a lot of credits. You have ways to remove your depletions. You have enough influence to burn your governments a lot, and it starts really expanding. And you still get this, shall we say, epic feel of the game, despite the fact that it's going to be quite short compared to. Like I don't know if you're playing Twilight Imperium, we all know that you need a weekend, you know.
right.
Well,
And that's absolutely not criticism. I mean, we never said we are trying to do an opponent to Twilight Imperium. It's just sometimes you just don't have time, you know, or you don't have 5 friends that want to play with you for an entire weekend.
yeah,
So
the player count is
Yeah.
something that is quite aggressive in Twilight Imperium, but it's actually a super fun game to play. Well, something that is actually different in Fractal, and we try to do a little bit mix up of some of the coin games of GMT, is add some cards that make each of the turn different. So as Kim mentioned, you have a lot of options. So the action card improve that replayability and make each of the turn different in terms of
Yeah.
alteration of the states. I am a big fan of the PAX games for Sierra Madre games, and actually it's pretty fun. This kind of a small pseudo PAX mechanic into the game.
I'm zooming in on these action cards that you put down here just so everybody can see them. Now, the thing that we didn't touch on in this that I am a huge sucker for is amazing art. And this game has blow your mind art that I'm seeing so
Thanks.
far.
Thank you.
And the components look like they're going to be really really fun as well. Um, and not everybody likes like I like that for an extra layer of immersion in a game. So that's just
Yeah,
me.
we tend
I
to
know other
agree.
people are different, but
No,
you
no, it's
have done an
true. Yeah.
outstanding job with that so far. It looks beautiful.
Thank you. You can see, for example, we just today we talked about that. Like the card, the action card you have with the yellow sun with a kind of Dyson sphere around. There's a
Hmm.
second one with the same art in the corner. Actually, some of them are for the prototypes. They are still duplicates, and so now that we are funded,
Oh,
we are in the process of actually expanding on the art. So it's pretty great. We're working with a single artist. So that's why we have like we
nice.
wanted to have something that is coherent. Not feel like we're just drawing art from everywhere on Google. Um, and yeah, so this, and we are trying to find ways also to adapt maybe like to the technologies. For example, this is pretty new from the campaign. We are finding people are more comfortable having illustration that's iconography, which is fine with us because it's more beautiful.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
if you're going to play some space, you need to see some space in action. We also
Oh,
think
for
that it
sure.
helps with the
Yeah,
immersion.
maybe the part of the immersion is on the legacy campaign that is called Beyond the Void. A lot of people ask us what it's all about, and if you see right here and to your left, I place a small demonstration of how it
Oh
works.
yeah.
Um, when a player win a game of these scenarios of Beyond the Void, they change the state of the galaxy in some way. So this small
Yeah.
rulebook has a campaign sheet that
Oh
leads you
wow.
to different scenarios and changes on the structure of the narrative of the game. This game is pretty deep in the construction of the lore and the let's say the origin of the universe is quite deep. We want to spoil any of these new events, but has some kind of awakening, has different kind of scenarios, and these scenarios
Neat.
contain special rules and introduce some way for the player for negotiate and develop in some way the interaction with the faction. So, for example, if you zoom in this page right here,
Yeah.
something
This
um,
one.
this page right here is a quite slow right here. Yeah. So if we see to this small campaign sheet, we see that the galaxy shift, the components of the aftermath is changing in these small boxes. The imperial
Yeah.
development is changing. The faction are getting extinct. Some of the faction reach ascension. So this is a small space opera, and the space opera there will only be a only winner. Like you're playing, for example, Clank Legacy. It's something similar to Clank Legacy in some way, but it's a branched ending. It's a campaign that has four different endings and different type of interaction between players. So
Wow.
this is the narrative part of the game. What you already test today is the light euro economy of a forex, and a lot of the typical stuff of the forex.
So how many plays on average is it to take through to get through the full legacy campaign? Are you still kind of fleshing that out?
No, no, it's so the campaign is pretty much ready, apart from a few lore that is left to write because we're trying to make a narrative that is coherent and tells a story, and if possible, a good one. So the currently the aftermath. Well, we keep saying the aftermath because actually the aftermath is the working title, but the aftermath is the framework. It's the legacy system that Bernardo and his team built, where you don't choose what happens in the story. It's the consequences of your action, the aftermath of your action
Okay.
that decides.
Yeah.
And the way we do this, maybe you've wondered why there were five types of victory points, but they don't have a specific impact in the game. Well, they do have an impact, but in the campaign. And if you win a
Interesting.
game, a core game, just like you were playing now with the Automata, and you score mostly military points, it's not going to change anything. The victory will be yours. But once you start playing the campaign, if you have a majority of productive victory points, or if you have a majority of military victory points, it's going to lead you organically towards different scenarios. And these
Nice.
scenarios are going to affect the setup, the special rules, and the victory conditions in turn to reflect the fact that now this is a military pass. So some of the action cards are going to be removed, like, for example, the scientific and influence cards are going to be removed. So you won't be pushed towards that direction. You're going to start the game with military technologies developed. You won't have access to certain civil technologies, stuff like that. At
Okay.
first, the changes are minor, let's say. They are not pushing the setup too far. But then the more you progress in the story, the weirder it's going to get. And so you will have some very strange, not strange in a bad way, but like some very different scenarios that will force you to rethink the way you play the game. You know, like even the modular scenarios, which end each of the chapters. They are these big scenarios that reflect the different victories you had to score to reach them. So, like for example, if you did military, then productive, then exploration, it will not be the same scenario as if you did imperial and then scientific, for example, to reach it.
Okay.
And they are
that's
going
really
to just
cool.
change the way you play the game from game to game. So there are like 25 plus scenarios. I say plus because there are some faction specific scenarios that we are still building at the moment.
Wow.
Bernardo mentioned Ascension and Extinction. It's because you're going to play with the same faction if you want.
Okay.
And every time you win or lose with one of the factions, I'm simplifying a little bit, but you're going to level up in Ascension and Extinction pretty much. And if you go extinct, the faction is gone for the campaign. And if you ascend, you will unlock some new governments, some new masteries, so that you can push the asymmetry even further. So 25 plus scenarios in total. And if you want to play the campaign, you're going to run usually between 12 and 15, depending if you explore a bit the side quest. There are 3 chapters. You usually do a 3 to 4 scenario run per chapter, then one of the 4 endings. So it's quite replayable also. And then you unlock a ton of stuff, like some new modules that add variance to the game. But again, based on the path that you chose. And obviously, if you don't have the time or you don't want to play the campaign, you just open everything. And then you've got a framework to play with, 25 custom scenarios, just for one shots. You say, okay, let's play a game where science is king, for example. And you can use the modules, you can use the new factions because there are 5 new factions as well. So yeah, it's a full size expansion of the game.
Yeah.
If you already we boast a bit of replayability with the core game. Honestly, if you tell us that you've really done everything the Aftermath had to offer, you've played quite a lot of Fractal already.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's a lot of game. I like that too because you can choose if you're somebody that doesn't like. If you don't like legacy games, this is still a game that you could play. You just don't go through the campaign.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you like campaign but don't like the legacy aspect of breaking down your games, which for example I am one of my games I have all the Pandemic Legacy. I just put everything in an envelope because I just can't throw a card. It's not possible.
I can't do it.
Yeah, I understand. And I will never use them again, but I just can't throw them away. Some people design them, so.
I have struggled significantly with Clank Legacy anytime it says destroy this card, and I go,
I won't. I can't. I understand that clearly. So you can play the game full legacy if you want, but honestly, that's not the recommended way to play because you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot for the rest of the core game. So rather, you treat the campaign as resettable while keeping everything unlocked out of the box for the core game experience. That's also why there are separate boxes instead of a big box, because it makes it easier to keep track. Okay, well, these are the components of the campaign. And if I need to reset, just bring back everything, you put it the way it was, and you can kind of start fresh with the campaign if you want. So
I like that.
It makes tracking of the multiple campaigns a bit easier than just at some point where you have like, do I unlock this? Do I put this back? And it becomes kind of messy when you have only one box with some empty compartments of stuff you haven't unlocked yet. And so we chose to do, there are 2 different products that work very well together, pretty much.
Yeah, I love that.
But it's quite interesting that this campaign is made from the beginning, trying to avoid this kind of option that you want to go to this place or you go to the other. It's not a binary type of decision making. The decision you're taking is on the board and scoring victory points. So in this way, victory point gain value depending on what you wanting to push forward the campaign, and that's the idea to get your actions be the moving part of the campaign. And just to answer the question of Alan Smith, yes, we have a lot of experience in PAX, and PAX has a huge impact in the elements of design of Fractal. There is a shared components, shared ideas, and we have a huge, nice interaction with Phil Edmund and Sierra Madre. And we hope in the future maybe designing what game of the packs. Yeah, I mean, the packs right there. So yeah, we hope maybe in the future work with Sierra Madre or joining with some of the
I'm
games.
stopping here because I have I have all
You're,
of them.
you're,
I can
you're
keep doing
making
this all night. Just making free advertisements.
you're giving free advertising, you know.
$1. $1.
The first version of the PAX Renaissance is amazing game, yeah. So, did you enjoy Clank Legacy? Is the same length of the structure of the campaign. It's like 8 to 12 game
Yeah.
sessions, and it's pretty compact. What people is get discouraged maybe because feel that the game is complex, but it's not. It's actually pretty
No.
simple. And when you get to the follow of the action and the game flow, the game's more goes pretty easy. In your second game, you're ready to play.
Yeah. And think you won't if you play it yourself, you won't get car sick with me driving TTS. So there is that. And a lot of it I asked for input from you as we're kind of playing through to make sure one that we're showing the right things for everyone to see. But it from what for like I said, going through just a couple of turns, you go, okay, yeah, I understand what I have to do, and now I really have to plan out what I want to try to do next. And I like that's always fun and meaty in a game when I have limited resources that I have to manage on top of planning out my turn. And I like, unlike some other games where I plan my turn and then someone else comes along and takes the thing that I want. That could happen with the cards, I guess, but I can still, I'm in a little bit more control of my path without somebody coming to necessarily wreck it. But, and kudos on the Automata, because woo!
So, yeah, you're totally right.
But it's true about what you just said, and in some of the previous versions, it was a bit more aggressive in terms of player, let's say, sabotage. But personally, I like it very much, but not everyone shares this enthusiasm for having... Some people, they just like planning what they're going to do, and then you just deal with the situation. But if suddenly, like, someone plays a card that removes like half of your hand or some stuff like that, it can be a bit less enjoyable. But all these kind of crap moves that you can do to your opponents, we are putting them in the modules of the campaign. So we introduce some optional rulings that you can play with or not, some extra components, stuff like that. Like if you want to play a game where you can send spies to your opponent's territory to sabotage colonies or steal them, that's possible, but they are optional, so you don't. You can really tailor the game to your mood or the players are playing the game with and stuff.
That's nice, because we have some, we don't play as much things that have take that in it. We play combat games, but you know what I mean? There are some people that like a greater level of that versus others. So that's really nice that you can adjust that.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
Well, Kim, thank you so much. You're a pretty sweet person, and really enjoyed having this small playtest with you, and I really appreciate the time that you're giving us here.
This was a ton of fun. Come back anytime and we can play again when you're like, if you're getting close to going live and you want to show off some more stuff, by all means, just
sure.
We'd love to have you back.
Just let us know when you want to play like a fuller game, or now that you have a good
I gotta practice a little first.
I was going to say, you don't have to read the rules, you have to read the manual of TTS, actually.
Yeah.
No, but anytime. It's a pleasure for us. Absolutely.
And thank you, Adam, as well. Thanks for joining us. He had a nice comment here. And I was going to say, everybody, if there's any other questions of the chat, I don't see anything else coming up. I did link a Kickstarter here. If you are only catching part of this afterwards, then we'll make sure that we link the Kickstarter in the description on YouTube, and you can come back and watch this anytime you want.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right.
See you next time. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Adam, Peter, and the people of... See you then. Bye-bye.
Have a lovely day and lovely night for me. Bye.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
I still have the evening to answer the Kickstarter page,
You've got half a night ahead of you still.
I will happy to do it. Don't worry. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See
you.
Bye then.